And we are live, not like last week when I had all kinds of technical issues starting the show. I'm actually starting the show on time, and we're live and we're good. So, good evening, folks. Welcome to Friday Night Tech Talk. And if you're watching on YouTube, you know you're on the MobileGeezer channel. I'm MobileGeezer. And of course, you could be watching us on Facebook on the MobileGeezer or George Hayes. And you could be watching us on X, also on MobileGeezer. But wherever you're watching, welcome. If you're new here, we do this every Friday night at this time from the East Coast time in the United States at 8 p.m. And we go over some articles, some tech articles from the last week that got released somewhere between last Friday and this Friday. So if you are new here, please type something in the comments. Let me know you're here and let us know where you're from. And as we do every week, oh, and Elna just popped in. Hey, Elna, glad you're here as always. So Elna's one of the most faithful regulars. Sometimes Annette and Brian are in here at this time. They're not here as yet. Oh, and Ted did let me know he won't be able to make it tonight. So he was here last week, and he often comes in and helps the show out tremendously, but he won't make it tonight. So unless some miracle happens and Will drops in the show, you're probably just there with me tonight, which means it'll be a quick show. So as I do every week, I'm going to show you the show notes on my website. So let me go share screen here. Okay, so if you want to follow along in the show notes and with the articles, you go to mobilegeezer.wordpress.com. You click on today's date, you'll get the show notes just for tonight's show. And as I do every week, I will give you a little preview of what we're going to talk about. As far as I know, there was no earth-shaking presentations this week. So I'm just going to give you the articles that I thought were interesting. Now, we did have one big thing this week, which was Tuesday. It looked like all the metaverse apps were down. So that's where we're going to start. And I took them off a site called the News Journal because it had the best sum up and a nice short one after it had come, after everything had come back. And then I realized after I included it in the notes that it was the Daytona Beach News Journal. So it's the first time I'm using that site, but it summed up the outage pretty good. So after that, we're going to talk about Gemini, and I'm sure most of you have heard that Google's Gemini embarrassed itself quite a bit last week, and going back even a little more than last week. You asked it to show you some German soldiers from World War II, and they were showing blacks and Indians in Nazi uniforms. So they were trying to be inclusive, but Gemini kind of overdid it to the point where Google had to pull it down or at least stop it from showing people. And Jerry from Android Central read a really good article here. And I just said, Google needs to slow walk Gemini a bit. And if you remember, folks, I've said back, 6, 7, 8 months ago that Google was rushing, trying to catch up with OpenAI and Microsoft. And I said, I didn't think they were going to catch up. Well, obviously, they're still rushing, trying to catch up. And remember when they first showed their first AI off, they embarrassed themselves by messing up, and they embarrassed themselves again last week. So I think they just need to slow it down. Next story, this was interesting. I just happened to find the story. A Googler got arrested this week for stealing Google AI secrets. This is a guy who worked there, so we'll talk about that. And then TikTok is back in. I just said, is the House getting serious about a TikTok ban? I took this from CNN Business, but maybe they are. And then after I put it up on the website, right behind it, I found another one from Gizmodo. And I said, did the TikTok campaign irritate House members? And that's why they had a 50-0 vote in one of the committees. So we'll talk about that. And then Phonery came up with an interesting article. I just said Siri to become the most accomplished assistant of all. So they seem to think that Apple is really going to bring Siri big time and may pass up everybody else as far as AI. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And the final story, once again, EU fined Apple. This time it was $1.95 billion for abusing its music streaming app's dominance. So they still think that Apple is bullying others and they're making them pay for it. So Apple, I gather, was very upset about that. So that'll be the last story we'll talk about. So nothing else new in the comments. If any of our regulars come in, I'll certainly let you know. And I don't think Ted's coming in from what he said. And if Will by some miracle comes in, I'll let you know. Meanwhile, we'll go to the first story. So the metaverse took a hit on Tuesday, I said. So let's go into the news journal. And like I said, it's the Daytona Beach News Journal. Didn't know that, but they summed it up well. So this was from Tuesday after things had come back, I gather, just after. And it said, is Facebook down? Technical issue brings down Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Messenger for hours. So basically, all the apps that belong to Facebook, or the metaverse, I should say. So this was on Tuesday by C.A. Bridges and Cheryl McLeod. So I'm going to put this in reader view so we can get rid of some of these ads. Okay. Now, I'll do the updates at the end. For a time Tuesday morning, it seemed that all of the internet was united with one overwhelming question: is Facebook down? The whole metaverse was. A technical issue brought down the tech giant websites, according to Meta Communications head Andy Stone in an X post. At its peak, over 500,000 Facebook outages were reported on the website down detector between 10 to 11 a.m. And that seemed to be the toughest part, from 10 to 11 a.m., with users complaining about getting kicked out and not being able to get back in. Somehow I had been on Facebook before that, and then I don't think I got on until after noon, so I never even saw the outage. Similar issues were reported with other Meta companies such as Instagram, Messenger, and Threads. Even MetaQuest, get this, even MetaQuest headsets kicked users out. 9to5Mac reports. YouTube, which is not a Meta company, was also down. Didn't know that either. Around the same time, although some users reported seeing it if they logged into their Google account. So I get YouTube had some issues, but not for everybody. That's my impression. By noon, users were reporting that first Facebook, and then the other services were back up. So it seems like by noon, everything was okay. Is Facebook down? Did you get logged out of Facebook? It's not you. Your password is fine, and you don't need to change it. Facebook's parent company, Meta, was suffering a service outage. Other Meta sites also experienced outages. Instagram. For a couple of hours Tuesday morning, the Instagram app seemed to work for some users, but wouldn't load certain feeds, and the desktop version would not load. The peak was 85,020 outages reported at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Threads. The Threads app was opening, but it would not display any feeds or posts. The peak of complaints at Down Detector was 860 at 10:30 a.m. Of course, not nowhere near as many people use Threads. Messenger. People trying to message friends and family with Messenger, and a lot of people use that as their main communications app, found themselves completely logged out. Down Detector reports a peak of user reports 12,122 at 10:30. So 10:30 seemed to be the absolute worst time for everything at once. YouTube, which is not a Meta company, was also reportedly down for some users during roughly the same time period. Down Detector reported a peak of user reports of 5,515, which is like nothing for YouTube, at 10:35. So again, that 10:30 time frame seemed to be the magic one, nailing all of them. When will Facebook be back up? Stone acknowledged the outage just before 11 a.m. on X, formerly known as Twitter, saying, "We're aware people are having trouble accessing our services. We are working on this now." I don't think they ever told us exactly what the issue was, as far as it was some programming issue. Sure of that. Service to first Facebook and then the other Meta services was restored by noon, just in time for people to discuss their state's presidential primaries today for Super Tuesday. That's right, it was Super Tuesday. Sante later posted that a technical issue, that's all they said, a technical issue, caused people to have difficulty accessing some of our servers. So it had to be an issue at the Meta level, and all the others just, happened to be connected to it at the same time. So, hey, Brian's in here. Yo, Brian, glad you're here, brother. And let me finish this story. Come right back. Tuesday's outage affecting Meta services comes less than 2 weeks after AT&T customers suffered a nationwide outage for hours. The company announced the next day that the outage was caused by a technical error due to the application and execution of an incorrect process used as we were expanding our network. So I guess they were expanding the network and somebody programmed something wrong, as far as I can tell. So that's all we know about now. The updates at the end, one came at 11:43 a.m. Some users have reported being able to get back into Facebook and Messenger, although service remains spotty. Instagram and Threads still having issues. But at 12, and I think this should be noon, all services seem back up. So it seemed like from 10:30 to noon was the serious part, and when things were the worst. Or 10:30 to 11, really, when things were the worst. So just thought I should report on it, since it was kind of a big deal for a couple of hours. So let's get out of this one. Let me stop screen for a minute. So Brian says that the world could use a day without Meta X and social media. That's probably true. Anyway, it only had to deal with an hour and a half to 2 hours. One serious note, don't want to say much, but please keep Renz in prayer. He has a serious family issue going on, and they could use our prayers. So, and Eleanor completely agrees with you, Brian. So, okay, back to the stories. We share screen again. Okay, second story, and this is a good one. Then Gemini, Google's Gemini had all kinds of issues. They embarrassed themselves. Remember the first day they came out with their Bard, the original one, and it messed up bad on day one. But with Gemini was supposed to be the big one, which was supposed to be better than ChatGPT and all that stuff. And once again, as I said all along, I think Google is rushing things too much and trying to catch up. Oh yeah, and by the way, I saw a video today that there might be some talk of firing what's his name, the CEO of Google. because of, I guess, because of the whole Gemini and the whole AI business being pretty embarrassing. And every time this happens, they lose a lot of market share. Yes, Sundar Pichai. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, so I've always thought of Sundar as the golden boy of Google, but I gather there are already board members who want him fired. So who knows? But nobody knows for sure. It's just, I gather, it's a rumor at the moment. Yeah, and Brian said Pixel 8 can't even get Gemini Nano. Yeah, and Tech, who was it that I followed today? Let me see if I can look him up. I watched a video earlier today about that specifically. If I can find it. Tech Odyssey. Yeah. If you guys don't know Tech Odyssey, he's a heavy duty YouTuber. He goes to all the events, and he made a really good one today about the fact that the Pixel 8 can't even get the Gemini Nano, and he's pretty upset about it. So if you want to go over to his Tech Odyssey channel and check out that video, it's worth watching, and he makes some good points. So in any case, so the rumor is that Sundar may be under the gun or on the hot seat, but who knows? So I'm going to go to this story on Android Central, written by Jerry Hildenbrand, and so of course I clicked the wrong story. Okay. Oh, I see what happened. Somehow I got the wrong one on here. Let's see if I can pull it up. Give me a second, folks. And Brian said, a golden boy today, smeared skid mark tomorrow. The layoffs at Google are appalling. Yeah, they just seem to keep on coming. And let's see if I can find this story on Android Central. First, I guess I should try to find it in my original notes, which I keep in Google Keep normally. Nope, that's not it. All right, let me go over to Android Central and see if I can find that story for you guys. I'm looking for Gemini. Google Gemini, okay. It's not the one I want. So I can find the one by Jerry. Nope. Sorry about this, folks. I can go back. And that's where they halted Gemini. Looking for a story by Jerry Hildenbrand. See if I can search on his name. Maybe that'll find it for me. Yeah, I'm having a hard time finding it. All right, so I'm going to skip it for now, and we'll try to come back to it. So let's see. Share screen again. Window. Oh. I want. I am really having issues. Let's go to back to my notes. Okay. And now I can share screen again. Okay. I'm going to skip that story and try to come back to it. But this was an interesting story, too. I said Googler arrested for stealing Google AI secrets. I got this story from The Verge, and I just thought it was really interesting. Never heard of a Google engineer being arrested for spying on this or stealing from Google before. So Google engineer indicted over allegedly stealing AI trade secrets for China. The stolen files allegedly related to Google's TPU chips and data centers for AI processing. And this guy was doing this for a couple of years. And it's by Emilia David. So first, before I go into reader view, I want to show you this little chart because it shows you how far back this goes. Count one, on or about June 1st, 2022 and April 17, 2023, I guess what he stole, chip architecture and software design specifications for TPU version 4. On or about June 1st, 2022 and April 17th, again, chip architecture and software design specifications. So that's twice. That's 2 charges that they've charged to him. 3, same dates, hardware, software, system management, and performance specifications for GPU chips deployed in Google's supercomputing data. So this guy had access to a lot of stuff. And 4, on or about June 1st, software design specifications for Google's CMS that manage machine learning workloads on TPU and GPU chips in Google's supercomputing data centers. And now I can drop this into reader view because I think that disappeared when I dropped it into reader view. Oh no, now this time it popped in. So, a federal grand jury has indicted a Google engineer, Linwei Ding, aka Leon Ding, for allegedly stealing trade secrets around Google's AI chip software and hardware on March 5th before he was arrested. So Tuesday, they indicted him, and Wednesday he was actually arrested. Wednesday morning in Newark, California. Didn't know there was a Newark, California. There's a Newark, New Jersey, and a Newark, Delaware. I knew that, being from Jersey. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco said in a statement that Ding stole from Google over 500 confidential files containing AI trade secrets while covertly working for China-based companies seeking an edge in the AI technology race. So, stealing the stuff for China companies. Much of the stolen data allegedly revolves around Google's Tensor Processing Unit TPU chips. Google's TPU chips power many of its AI workloads, and in conjunction with NVIDIA GPUs can train and run AI models like Gemini. The company has also offered access to the chips through partner platforms like Hugging Face, which I've never heard of. Software designs for both the V4 and V6 TPU chips, hardware and software specifications for GPUs using Google's data center, and designs for Google's machine learning workloads in data centers are among the allegedly stolen files. So he seemed to have access to everything. Amid a growing arms race around AI technology and U.S. government efforts to ban China from accessing chips built for AI, some Chinese companies have turned to local chip producers to power AI platforms. Late last year, intelligence chiefs of the so-called Five Eyes Alliance of the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand warned U.S. tech companies about companies in China potentially stealing intellectual property related to AI, quantum computing, and robotics. So I guess they were right. The government accuses Ding of transferring those files to a personal Google Cloud account between May 2022 and May 2023. He allegedly did so by copying data, get this, from the Google source files into the Apple Notes application on his Google-issued MacBook laptop and then converting them from Apple Notes to PDFs to avoid detection by Google's data loss prevention system. So he knew how to beat the system. The government says that less than a month after he began stealing files, a Chinese machine learning company named Rongshu offered to make him chief technical officer. He flew to China for 5 months to raise funds for the company and subsequently founded and led a machine learning startup named Hesan, I guess, all while still working for Google. So he even had the nerve to start his own company, and all this while he was still working for Google. He resigned from Google in December 2023 and reportedly booked a one-way ticket to Beijing, scheduled to depart 2 days past his end date after the company began asking him about his uploads. Now, the interesting thing here is he booked a one-way ticket in December, but he was arrested in Newark, California 2 days ago. So something made him come back. The DOJ also claims that in December 2023, he allegedly faked being present at Google's office in the U.S. by having another employee scan his badge at the door while he was actually in China. Ding has been charged with 4 counts of theft of trade secrets, and I showed you the counts. So he's facing up to 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine on each count if convicted. So I think they have a pretty strong case to me. We have strict safeguards to prevent the theft of our confidential commercial information and trade secrets. After an investigation, we found that this employee stole numerous documents, and we quickly referred the case to law enforcement. We are grateful to the FBI for helping protect our information and will continue cooperating with them closely, said Google spokesperson Jose Castaneda in a statement emailed to The Verge. And it was updated yesterday, just added the statement from Google. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. This guy seemed to have access to a lot of stuff. And Brian says, yeah. Brian said, here, another headache for Sunda. That's for sure. So, very, very interesting story. Let me get out of this one. And nothing else new, so we'll go on to the next story. Oh yeah, now the TikTok stuff. Now remember, they were worried about Chinese companies stealing stuff. And of course, we've heard rumors about TikTok bans before. So I just said, is the House getting serious about TikTok ban? This one is on CNN Business. And this is from yesterday. House panel, get this, unanimously approves bill that could ban TikTok. And there were 50 people voting on that. So this is from yesterday by Brian Fung. And I have a little follow-up story to this right after this, too. So let's go into read a view. This thing's been giving me trouble going into read a view today. Let's see if I can get out and come back in. Out and now back to review. I hope. Yeah, okay. A powerful House committee advanced a bill on Thursday that could lead, so nothing's happened yet, to a nationwide ban against TikTok on all electronic devices, renewing lawmakers' challenge to one of the world's most popular social media apps and highlighting unresolved fears that TikTok may pose a Chinese government spying risk. Now, remember, we've gone over this before, but it seems like this one it's getting closer to a real ban. The measure that sailed unanimously, that's what surprised me, to the House Energy and Commerce Committee would prohibit TikTok from U.S. app stores unless the social media platform, used roughly by 170 million Americans, is quickly spun off from its China-linked parent company ByteDance. If enacted, the bill would give ByteDance 165 days, or a little more than 5 months, to sell TikTok. So they'll keep TikTok here if ByteDance sells them off. Of course, this may not go through in a total house, but we'll see. If not divested by that date, it would be illegal for App Store operators such as Apple and Google to make it available for download. The bill also contemplates similar prohibitions for other apps controlled by foreign adversary companies. It's the most aggressive legislation targeting TikTok to come out of a congressional committee since company CEO Shou Chu testified to lawmakers last year, I remember that the app poses no threat to Americans. Today we will take the first step in creating long overdue laws to protect Americans from the threat posed by our apps controlled by our adversaries, and to send a very strong message that the U.S. will always stand up for our values and freedom, said Republican Rep. Kathy McMorris Rogers, the panel's chair. New Jersey Rep. Frank Pallone, its ranking Democrat, compared the bill to prior efforts to regulate the U.S. airwaves, citing testimony from national security officials for a closed-door hearing earlier Tuesday. So you've got Republicans and Democrats agreeing on this. I take the concerns raised by the intelligence community this morning very seriously, Pallone said. They have asked Congress to give them more authority to act in these narrowly defined situations, and I believe that this bill will do that. The bill was introduced with some bipartisan support earlier this week by Wisconsin Republican Rep. Mike Gallagher, who chairs a House Select Committee on China, and the ranking member of that committee, Illinois Democratic Rep. Raja, I don't think I can say the Krishnamurthy, I guess. The legislation also has the support of the White House and House Speaker Mike Johnson. And please forgive me if I butchered your name or the name. Now that it has cleared the committee, the TikTok legislation will head to a floor vote next week, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise said in a post on X Thursday evening. Its fate is less clear in the Senate, where there is no companion bill. That's unusual that there's not a companion bill in the Senate. And the Democratic chair of the Senate Commerce Committee, Washington Senator Maria Cantwell, has made no firm commitment to advance the proposal. So maybe the House will pass it and the Senate won't, which means it won't become law. But we'll see. Anyway, it seems to be getting more serious. I will be talking to my Senate and House colleagues to try and find a path forward that is constitutional and protects civil liberties, Cantwell said in a statement to CNN. House lawmakers voted unanimously in the same session Thursday to advance a second bill, one that would limit U.S. companies' ability to sell Americans' personal information to foreign adversaries. Yeah, it's probably a good idea. U.S. officials have cited the widespread commercial availability of U.S. citizens' data as another source of national security risk. I would agree. The U.S. government and other domestic law enforcement agencies are also known to have purchased U.S. citizens' data from commercial data brokers. TikTok is mounting a push against the bill. Yeah, and we'll go over a story about that, including trying to mobilize its user base. That's what our next story is about. So we'll skip this part because I'll go over that in the next story. But speaking to reporters on the Capitol steps Thursday, Gallagher rejected characterizations of the bill as a TikTok ban. It's not a ban, he said. It puts the choice squarely in the hands of TikTok to sever their relationship with the Chinese Communist Party. That's how they look at ByteDance. As long as ByteDance no longer owns the company, TikTok can continue to survive. He means in the U.S., of course. People can continue to do all the dumb dance videos they want on the platform or communicate with their friends and all that stuff. But the basic ownership structure has to change. So they want ByteDance to really let it go. In a post on X, TikTok rejected lawmaker claims about the legislation providing options for TikTok. All right, so I won't do the rest of this. We'll go to the next story, which goes into all of this stuff. So let me back out of this one. And I said, the TikTok campaign irritate House members. I'm thinking that's why they got a 50-0 vote, because TikTok's campaign really got under their skin. But this one's on Gizmodo. Like I said, this story is also from yesterday. TikTok's campaign to stop U.S. ban backfires, enraging Congress. And I think that's where they got the 50-0 vote. A House committee voted on a bill to divest TikTok by a vote of 50-0 Thursday afternoon. So, on to read a view. TikTok sent a push notification to United States users on Thursday morning, asking them to call their local representative to stop a TikTok shutdown. The app refers to a bipartisan bill, which we just talked about, gaining momentum in Congress this week, which could ban TikTok altogether. So this is TikTok talking. Congress is planning a total ban of TikTok, said the push notification to TikTok users seen by Gizmodo. Speak up now before your government strips 170 million Americans of their constitutional right to free expression. Let Congress know what TikTok means to you and tell them to vote no. So I can see why this would have really upset Congress people. The push notification featured a space to enter your zip code and a call now button that would immediately call your local congressman. Boy, they were thorough. TikTok has over 150 million American users, and the bill making its way through Congress could cut access to all of them, which we just talked about. Bipartisan lawmakers from the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party authored this bill. The bill would ban TikTok from U.S. app stores unless the app's parent company, China-based ByteDance, gives up control of TikTok. In a statement to Gizmodo, a TikTok spokesperson said the notification only went to users over 18. Yeah, well, TikTok's effort appears to have worked at first, as congressional officers were reportedly bombarded with phone calls about the potential TikTok ban on Thursday, according to Politico. It's so bad our phones have not stopped ringing. So it initially did work. There are teenagers and old people saying they spend their whole day on the app and we can't take it away, one House GOP staffer told Politico. But it now appears the move has backfired, according to a Politico reporter. The large number of calls has reportedly enraged Congress members who then unanimously advanced the bill in a 50-0 vote. The bill that could ban TikTok is headed to the House floor for a vote. And like we said, we believe next week. Despite TikTok CEO Shou Chu's assurance that the Chinese government does not control the app, U.S. lawmakers are concerned that China has too much influence over Americans with TikTok. FBI Director Christopher Wray said TikTok screams of national security concerns due to its ties to China. The bill is important. We welcome this step, said White House Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre regarding this bill. The bill would allow the FBI and other intelligence agencies to identify social media apps under the control of foreign adversaries such as TikTok. Then the president could ban these products from online app stores. There's an exception to the ban requiring the app to cut ties with foreign adversaries within 180 days of designation. Now, the other story said 165 days. NBC reports the bill would be sent to the House floor on Thursday for a future vote. So I guess they sent the bill yesterday to the House floor, but it says for a future vote. So I'm thinking they're talking about voting next week. TikTok says this is an outright ban, despite Congress noting there's an option to avoid the ban by divesting from ByteDance. This legislation would trample the First Amendment's right. We already went through that. So the looming ban on TikTok seems to have more ground than previous attempts. In 2020, President Trump said he would ban TikTok due to its ties to China, though his attempts were stopped and no ban ever happened. At the time, a court called Trump's decision to ban TikTok arbitrary and capricious, and not so much now, though, because it didn't consider alternatives for the popular social media app. So I guess they think that divesting it from ByteDance is the right alternative. This current ban seems to give TikTok at least one other option, to avoid a ban, though the company may not be happy about it. So just thought that was a really good follow-up to the other story, and now we probably know why they got a 50-0 vote against TikTok. And that's it. Hey, Annette, glad to have you here. Been through a few stories. Kind of lost a link to one of the stories, but I'm going to try to go back to it later if I can find it. But that was TikTok. So now I'm going to find this. I found this interesting Siri story on Phone-Arena. I said Siri to become the most accomplished assistant of all? So let's check this out on Phone-Arena. Take a quick sip here. So it says, prediction, the Vision Pro isn't Apple's ace in the hole for 2024. Siri is about to evolve big time with generative AI. So this was the day before yesterday, and this is by Rado Minkoff. So let me get this in reader view, get rid of some of these ads. In March, yet there's no Apple. It's March, yet there's no Apple March event, unlike usual. Is Apple so focused on its Vision Pro headset that most of its other products are suffering for it? I don't believe that's entirely the case. And not only that, but I doubt the Vision Pro is the only surprise Apple's got in store for us for 2024. As we reported recently, Siri's big AI transformation could be announced at WWDC 2024. So this guy seems to think it's going to be a big deal. Indeed, Siri, Apple's virtual assistant that's been on iPhone since 2011, might finally catch up with the competition. Yeah, it's been a long time trying to catch up. Perhaps even surpass it this year. Here's my 2 cents on why that's a huge deal and where it may lead us based on what we know so far. The new 2024 Siri may get Chat GPT-like conversational abilities, actual comprehension of written and spoken word, not just basic commands and keywords. Image generation potentially coming too. So they think it's going to be upgraded quite a bit. Siri has gotten a tad more conversational in recent times, now listening for further commands after the initial one and attempting to understand and connect the dots between them. But it's still quite behind more advanced virtual assistants like Alexa and Google Assistant. There are plenty of reasons for that, most well known being the fact that Apple chose not to collect as much data from its users and thus train Siri on it as the companies behind those other assistants, which has a limiting impact on Siri. I'm sure it does. However, reports are now saying that Apple is in fact now spending millions a day to train its own language model called Ajax, which, according to the information via The Verge, is more powerful than ChatGPT. They all want to be more powerful than ChatGPT. Not only that, but Apple's hopefully upcoming Siri update will also be able to recognize and even generate images for you, not unlike what Microsoft's Copilot, among others, can already do today. For the uninitiated, you can basically tell such AI assistants whatever ridiculous thing comes to mind, like generate an image of the Pope wearing a puffer jacket, and they'll attempt to do just that. We've all seen the fake image in question, right? I've seen images like it, that's for sure. Granted, AI models have received certain limitations since then. Many of them are no longer allowed to generate images of real people, which is the whole problem with Google's Gemini, or potentially offensive images in general, also Google's Gemini, which, judging by Google's AI sparking some controversial discussions recently, is a pretty difficult task to nail. In any case, we can assume that Apple will handle things more gracefully, meaning it will probably limit the heck out of what the new advanced Siri can generate, or say, in an extreme effort, be as unoffensive as possible at the potential price of limited functionality. Yeah, I'd say you're better off being unoffensive than what Gemini did. But more importantly, here's hoping Apple manages to retain its privacy-oriented image even after introducing this massive new ChatGPT-like update for Siri. The new advanced Siri will have a big place on the Apple Vision Pro. Warning, futuristic speculation, so he's just taking his best guess. I recently published an editorial titled "Having a Conversation with Your AI Phone: Why This is the Future and Just Plain Exciting." In it, I attempted to convey why conversational AI is an incredible thing to have and make use of, if not a bit eerie, I'm sure. If the above-mentioned reports turn out to be true, and Apple really gives Siri ChatGPT-like and supposedly even more powerful capabilities, we'll suddenly have intelligent conversational AI built into millions of users' iPhones, iPads, and MacBooks. Conversational generative AI will suddenly become far more than just a tech enthusiast thing, which is what it is now, I think, for a niche group of people to tinker with. It's exciting to see where this goes, albeit again a bit worrisome. But I digress. Here's the thing. A new powerful Siri with intelligent conversational abilities, along with image recognition and generational capabilities, will fit perfectly into Apple's vision for the future, the Apple Vision Pro AR/VR headset. I'm sure it would. For now, the Vision Pro is arguably just a more clunky iPad, yeah, that some people think so, presented in a different way, but with far less apps. It's a promise. Apple's just testing the waters. But imagine this idea years from now when it inevitably blooms into thinner, lighter AR glasses with a built-in, always active, intelligent virtual assistant that can not only see everything you're seeing, but recognize and understand it. And it's notice he said lighter because one of the big complaints about the Vision Pro is how heavy it is. It can converse with you, help you navigate the world, recognize and internet search all the things that cross your eyesight. Say a nice car drives by and you quickly wish to check its model and price, and who knows what else. Granted, this vision is probably a bit far into the future as of 2024, but slowly and surely its foundation is becoming real before our very eyes. This year, Apple might finally catch up, we hope, or some people hope, and maybe even surpass the competition with its own, hopefully more private and reliable AI language model, and that's a massive step towards said vision. In any case, how do you feel about that? Disturbing or exciting? Well, as long as it's not too far. Do you believe Apple will surprise us with a massive Siri update this year? Well, obviously he does. So just a very, very interesting story. So let me get out of this one. All right, I'm going to take one more shot to see if I can find that other story that I seem to have linked to the wrong link. So I'm going back to Google Keep, which is where I originally had my note on that story. See if I can find it. Oh wait, I might have found it. Nope, that's not it. Thought I had it there for a minute. Android Central. You know what I just realized? I think I originally got that story in email. So let me see if I have an email. Sorry about this, folks. From Android Central. Let's see. Still digging for this thing. Okay, that's not it. I guess I'm not going to find that story because I don't seem to be able to dig it up. So, let's see. Too bad because it was a really good. You guys know Jerry Hilton, but he writes really, really good stuff. But I don't seem to be able to find it. All right, I'm going to give one more shot with a quick search. I'm going to say Jerry brand and Gemini. And I think, yep, I found it. Okay, folks, I'm going to stop screen here. I'm going to share screen. Found the original story somewhere else, and this was by Jerry Hildebrand. This is from March 2nd. Gemini's fiasco proves AI is moving too fast for Google. So what's next? I just thought this was a really well done story. Let's see if I can get this in reader view. Okay. Google recently acknowledged that the image generation feature within its conversational AI app Gemini produced some inaccurate, and maybe even offensive results. The company paused the feature while it looked into what needed to be done to correct it. It's easy to laugh these mistakes off or to get offended at their absurdity, and some people even go as far as thinking there is some sort of conspiracy with racial undertones. And that's one thing. Jerry's very balanced and logical about it. He doesn't go off half-cocked. One of the web's longest-running tech columns, Android and Chill, is, oh no, that's just a commercial. This is possible, but extremely unlikely. What he's saying is possible is the some sort of conspiracy with racial undertones. Google is in the business of trying to tell you what you want to know, and the company isn't in business to make the world a better place. Its purpose is to make money, and controversy doesn't help do that. He's always practical about these things. So what went wrong, and why did Gemini falter in its attempts to produce realistic images of people? And Brian, I'm thinking if Sundar does go, this may be the final nail. Too much of a good thing. One of the main issues was an overtuning for inclusivity and diversity. Yeah, I'd say so. Google wanted to combat potential biases in its image generation model. Unfortunately, the tuning had unintended side effects. Yes, it did. Instead of simply avoiding unfair stereotypes, Gemini sometimes appeared to insert diversity where it was neither historically accurate nor appropriate for the given prompt. A request for a 1940s doctor might result in images featuring doctors of various ethnicities, even though you wouldn't have been accurate, even though that wouldn't have been an accurate representation during that time. Google needs to do this, and it has nothing to do with being woke. Yeah, I'm sure we all heard that a lot, especially last week. The people who program and train AI models do not represent everyone, and there's the problem. For example, Joe from Indiana doesn't have a lot in common with Fedhila from Tanzania, and he's right, and that's where the problem came in. Both can use Google Gemini and both expect inclusive results, but yeah, they're going to be very different results. Google went too far in one direction, that's right. In an attempt to ensure inclusivity and avoid biases, Gemini's image generation was tuned to prioritize diverse representation in its outputs. However, this tuning was wrong in certain situations. Yeah, it was big time wrong. When users requested images of people in specific contexts, the model wouldn't always generate accurate images. Instead, prioritizing showing individuals from various backgrounds regardless of their suitability for the specific prompt. This is why we saw things like African American George Washington or a female pope. Yeah, it really did all of that. AI is only as smart as the software that powers it because it's not actually intelligent. And this is what we all have to remember. None of the AI has actual intelligence. It's just programming. To its credit, Google realizes this mistake and hasn't tried to dodge the issue. Speaking with the New York Post, Jack Krasik, I've never been able to pronounce the name right, Google Senior Director of Product Management for Gemini Experiences, said, "We're working to improve these kind of depictions immediately." I guess you would be. Google's AI image generation does not generate a wide range of people. And that's generally a good thing because people around the world use it, but it's missing the mark here. In addition to being weighted for diversity and inclusiveness, the model was also designed to be cautious about avoiding harmful content or replicating harmful stereotypes. Yeah, and it went too far with this too. This caution, while well-intentioned, turned into a problem. In some cases, Gemini would avoid generating certain images altogether even when there seemed to be no harmful intent behind the prompt. The two issues combined led to a situation where Gemini sometimes produced strange or inaccurate images, especially when it came to depicting people. And that's why Google turned off it depicting people at all. Generative AI is a lot different than the AI that powers many of the other Google products you have installed on your phone and requires more attention. The way forward. Google has recognized these issues and the need to balance inclusivity against historical and contextual accuracy. It's a difficult challenge for generative AI models, yeah, you can say that again. While preventing the reinforcement of harmful stereotypes is a noble goal, it shouldn't come at the expense of the model simply doing what it's asked to do. Finding that balance is crucial for the future success of image generation AI models. Google, along with other companies working within this space, will need to refine their models carefully, and slow down, I think, to achieve both inclusive results and the ability to accurately fulfill a wider range of useful prompts. They need to forget about where Microsoft and ChatGPT are and just take their time, I think. Pardon me. It's important to remember that these are early stages for this type of technology. While disappointing, these setbacks are an essential part of the learning process that will ultimately lead to more capable and reliable generative AI. Generative AI models require fine-tuning to achieve the balance between inclusivity and accuracy. When attempting to address potential bias, models can become overly cautious and produce incomplete or misleading results. The development of more robust image generation AI is an ongoing challenge. Where Google went wrong was not explaining what happened in a way that regular folks would understand. Knowing how AI models are trained isn't something that many people are interested in, that's true. And understanding why it's done a certain way is important in this context. Google could have written this article in one of its many blogs and avoided much of the controversy around Gemini being bad at something. I just thought Jerry just wrote this terrific, well-balanced, and fair article there. So I just thought it was a good article to let everybody see. So I just wanted people to see that. So, and that I'm glad I found it right after I did the Siri story too. So that turned out well. And see one quick sip. And I have one more story left. Let me go back to sharing screen. And EU fines Apple $1.95 billion for abusing its music streaming app's dominance. And this was on CNBC. The EU is very serious about Apple not dominating the market, and they're proving it. So Apple hit with more than $1.95 billion EU antitrust fine over music streaming. And I gather they were very, very upset about this. And this is by Ajon Karpal. So, and this was from March 4th, so a few days ago. So let me get this into reader view. Okay, the European Commission, the European Union's executive arm, on Monday hit Apple with a 1.8 billion euro, $1.95 billion antitrust fine for abusing its dominant position in the market for the distribution of music streaming apps. The Commission said it found that Apple had applied restrictions on app developers that prevented them from informing iOS users about alternative and cheaper music subscription services available outside of the app. And that's the point. They want these developers to be able to tell users about the other apps. Apple also banned developers of music streaming apps from providing any instructions about how users could subscribe to these cheaper offers, the commission alleged. This is Apple's first antitrust fine from Brussels and is one of the biggest dished out to a technology company by the EU. Now, Apple knew that the EU was watching them for a long time, so I think they had to see this coming. Apple shares were down around 2.5% in morning trading in the US. That would have been Monday. The European Commission opened an investigation into Apple after a complaint from Spotify in 2019. And I remember we talked about that back in 2019. So it's been a while. The probe was narrowed down to focus on contractual restrictions that Apple imposed on app developers, which prevent them from informing iPhone and iPad users of alternative music subscription services at lower prices outside of the App Store. Apple's conduct lasted almost 10 years, according to the Commission, and may have led many iOS users to pay significantly higher prices for music streaming subscriptions because of the high commission fee imposed by Apple on developers and passed on to consumers in the form of higher subscription prices for the same service on the Apple App Store. Now, Apple response. Get this, in a fiery response to the fine. So I don't know how they didn't see this coming. Apple said Spotify would stand to gain the most from the EU printout. Well, yeah, they've been trying to get you on this for 6 years now? 5 years? Yeah, 5 years. The primary advocate for this decision and the biggest beneficiary is Spotify, a company based in Stockholm, Sweden. Spotify has the largest music streaming app in the world and has met with the European Commission more than 65 times during this investigation, Apple said. Well, yeah, since they're part of the EU, or their country is. Today, Spotify has a 56% share of Europe's music streaming market, more than double their closest competitors, and pays Apple nothing, didn't know that, for the services that have helped make them one of the most recognizable brands in the world. Apple said that a large part of Spotify's success is thanks to the Cupertino, California-based Giant's App Store, along with the tools and technology that Spotify uses to build, update, and share their app with Apple users around the world. And that's probably very true. Apple said that Spotify pays it nothing. That's because instead of selling subscriptions in its iOS app, Spotify sells them via its own website, just smart on their part. Apple does not collect a commission on those purchases. Developers over the years have spoken out against the 30% fee Apple charges on in-app purchases. Boy, haven't they? Spotify, in a statement, called the commission's decision an important moment in the fight for a more open internet for consumers. So Spotify is pretty happy. Apple's rules muzzled Spotify and other music streaming services from sharing with our users directly in our app about various benefits, denying us the ability to communicate with them about how to upgrade and the price of subscriptions, promotions, discounts, or numerous other perks. So Spotify wants to be able to let people know inside Apple's app when they're using, at least when they're on Spotify, but when they're in like an Apple phone, an iPhone, they want to be able to let people know they can go to theirs for cheaper. And up until now, Apple hasn't allowed that. Of course, Apple Music, a competitor to these apps, is not barred from the same behavior. Yeah, so Apple gave themselves an advantage, which I guess was fair, but now they've got to make things even. The commission said Apple prevented developers of music streaming apps from informing their iOS users within their apps about prices of subscriptions or offers available elsewhere. App developers could not include links to their apps. Yeah, Apple was having none of that. Leading iOS users to the app developers' websites where alternative subscription could be bought, the commission alleges. The EU's executive arm also said Apple prevented app developers from contacting their own newly acquired users, for example, via email, to inform them about alternative pricing options. In a press briefing, EU antitrust chief Margaret Vestager qualified the basic amount of the fine for Apple, excluding the 1.8 billion euro lump sum, as quite small and like it to a speeding ticket or a parking ticket relative to the company's scale. Yeah, as soon as I saw the how much was it? 1.95 billion. My first thought was probably the same as hers. Yeah, I think Apple could afford that. When Apple imposes these anti-steering provisions on the music provider, they, as developers, have no other choice than to either accept them or abandon the App Store. That's the problem. Apple, with its App Store, currently holds a monopoly, Vestager said. She added the commission has ordered Apple to remove the so-called anti-steering provisions and to refrain from similar practices in the future. So they're going to have to let those people, Spotify and others, use their links within the App Store. The fine will ramp up tensions between big tech and Brussels at a time when the EU is increasing scrutiny of these firms. Yeah, they're getting tighter and tighter. Last year, the Commission designated Apple, among other tech firms like Microsoft and Meta, as gatekeepers, and we've talked about that before, under a landmark legislation called the Digital Markets Act, which we've talked about many times, which broadly came into effect last year. Well, technically, I guess this is when it really cracked down, this month. The term gatekeepers refers to massive internet platforms which the EU believes are restricting access to core platform services such as online search, advertising, and messaging and communications. The DMA aims to clamp down on anti-competitive practices from tech players and force them to open up some of their service to other competitors. Smaller internet firms and other businesses have complained about being hurt by these companies' business practices. These laws have already had an impact on Apple. The company announced plans this year to open up its iPhone and iPad to alternative app stores, that's true, other than its own. Developers have long complained about the 30% fee Apple charges on in-app purchases. Vestager fired a warning shot to Apple in regard to the DMA. In a couple of days, 7th of March, I told you it was this month, so this would have been yesterday, Apple will have to comply with the full list of do's and don'ts. Yeah, that's when it kicked in yesterday, under the DMA. Among others, Apple can no longer impose rules such as the anti-steering obligations, and this holds for any app on the App Store, not just music streaming apps. So yeah, as of yesterday, Apple has to comply, or they're probably just going to get fined every day. So my guess is they probably will. So that was a good story to go over. And Apple will still be making money. They just won't be making money unfairly from the EU's point of view. And I'm very glad I found that Gemini story by Jerry, because I thought that was the best story that I had this week. So that's it, folks. I've been through all my stories. Glad you hung with me. And please remember to keep Renz and his family in prayer. They're in a very serious situation. That's about all I can say about it. So glad you guys came in as usual. Thank you guys for being so faithful. And I will be back next week. And if we're lucky, maybe Ted will be back too. And who knows, some miracle, we may even get Will one of these days. So I hope you guys have a very, very blessed weekend, and I will see you next week. And let's always remember we all do better when we love each other. And let me stop screaming. Now let me say, let's always remember we all do better when we love each other. See you next week, folks.